Robert Monroe spent years mapping the edges of out-of-body phenomena. His approach was strictly methodical, returning from exterior dimensions with cages of data to be rigorously cataloged. Analyzing his own records, he realized he was detailing the external realms while remaining ignorant of the observer doing the cataloging. Recognizing this flaw, he halted his expeditions into the outward void. He devised a new protocol to aim his focus in the opposite direction, attempting to trace his own subconscious architecture. Exploring an unknown environment yields limited results if you do not understand the instrument you are using to observe it. For Monroe, that instrument was his own mind. Bypassing the surface layers of human consciousness required intense focus. It took dozens of structured sessions spread across a full year before the mental static cleared and the underlying data took shape. At his core, he didn't find a singular ego, but a unified, multidimensional entity he called the I there. His life as Robert Monroe functioned as a localized sensory probe, an independent finger exploring physical reality, sending data back to the central nervous system. This structure presents the human identity not as a singular being, but as a localized extension of an all-knowing network. Testing the depths of this internal structure, he arrived at a layer containing his life's unedited memory. Deep within it lay a winter night in 1934, spent on an iron cot in a Salvation Army shelter. He recalled sitting awake near an old man in the neighboring bed who was quietly dying. Before passing, the man offered a cryptic remark about fulfilling a special purpose beyond human understanding. Monroe dramatized this exact encounter, including the man's final revelation, in a prize-winning college play he wrote 20 years before his out-of-body research began. His waking mind had no explanation for where the dialogue came from when he wrote it. His subconscious possessed a literal understanding of the revelation decades before his research into consciousness began. Digging past raw memory, he encountered a dense layer of fears. One incident involved him climbing 70 feet down into an old fieldstone-lined well on his property. With loose rock separating him from the daylight above, his chest tightened in panic. As he leaned back against the stone wall, the terror dissolved into a profound calm, replaced by a maternal earth intelligence that settled his breathing. He recognized a similar pattern of manufactured panic in a dream haunting his years as an active pilot, a recurring nightmare where he flew a small plane down a city street, dodging an impenetrable grid of overhead cables. Monroe concluded that these waking trials and nocturnal terrors were stress-inducing protocols systematically engineered by the I there. His higher self manufactured these specific anxieties to force a localized evolutionary response. Pushing further inward, he hit a solid barrier, a psychological wall built from an addiction to the physical rules and sensory inputs of the Earth life system. Beyond it, he found the source of the I there's data pool, independent, accumulated lives. One distinct fragment was a defiant 12th century cathedral builder working across medieval Britain. Monroe's brother later took a photograph in Scotland of the ancestral seat of the Monroe clan. The octagonal stone tower in the image mirrored a modern research tower built at Monroe's Virginia Institute, matching its proportions exactly. This architectural correlation bridges the gap between subjective experience and objective historical reality, providing physical evidence for the multi-life I there. His I there comprised a diverse range of physical fragments, ranging from an alien pilot flying reconnaissance over rugged terrain to a non-human entity manipulating physical matter through resonant sound. Among them was a 19th century first mate on a square-rigged ship, fighting a violent gale in a narrow strait and losing 3 crewmen, including his best friend, to the sea. A single human consciousness is a repository of disparate physical traumas, failures, and triumphs, all feeding their raw emotional data back into a central source. At the center of this mental architecture, Monroe encountered the origin point, a non-physical entity he cataloged as KT-95. KT-95 began as an ancient, multidimensional traveler who dipped into the physical world and became addicted to the sensory feedback loop of Earth. Monroe's fears, memories, and research were the end result of this original entity attempting to untangle its own addiction. To explore the most unfathomable reaches of the cosmos, one only has to map the architecture of their own mind.